All right, I'm gonna refilm this because I forgot to add a bunch of stuff, and so this is the video about Ilya. I'm gonna tell the story about Ilya. So, first of all, thanks for all the subs, the likes, the comments. I appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for the tips on Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal. I appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for the Patreon support. I appreciate every single one of you. And there's people kind of getting freaked out about the Patreon, but my YouTube's not going to change. Don't sweat that, bro. I'm not going to start being like exclusively on Patreon or anything. The things that I'm putting on Patreon, I never could have put on YouTube, you know, so don't sweat it, bro. And maybe I'll make another tier for like $1 on Patreon, because I made it $5 and $20. I was looking at other people's, and that's what they were doing, so that's what I did. Maybe I'll make one for $1 too. But trust me, my main focus is going to be YouTube. Because the point of the YouTube is to help people who are struggling. You know what I'm saying? The point of the Patreon is a place for me to talk about my theories on how Western society has become what it's become. So, you know, my YouTube ain't going nowhere, so don't sweat it. Even if I was making 10 cents a week, I'd still do it, because I appreciate you, because y'all got me out of a fucking jam last month. I'll just put it that way. And that's something I will never forget. So anyways, that's all. Get all that shit out of the way, which I forgot to do in the last video. So now Ilya. So now the Safdie brothers, who made the movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. It's an awesome movie. If you've never seen it, you should see it. They also made a movie called Good Times, I think, which I'm in that movie for a couple of minutes. And they paid me good for my little tiny part in that movie, I gotta say. And then so they also made a movie called Heaven Knows What. Now that movie is about Arielle, who, I guess, what is a fucking helicopter? Coast Guard helicopter. So what happened was, I guess one of the Safdie brothers, or both of them, ran into Arielle on the street, and she was homeless and I guess panhandling, and she's an attractive girl. She's a hot girl. Like, you wouldn't expect to see a hot girl like this panhandling, you know? So I guess that caught their attention, and he was just like, he wanted to know her story. Like, how does this hot young girl end up panhandling on the streets of New York City? It seems like, you know, it's a dangerous situation for a hot young girl. Let me tell you something. If you're an attractive young female, you do not want to be homeless on the streets of New York, unless you know a lot of people, and there's going to be people looking out for you, because there's some fucking dangerous people out there, and they are ice cold, and they are fucking ruthless, and it's not even safe for dudes. Forget about chicks, bro, especially an attractive one. But she had, you know, Ilya was her boyfriend, who Ilya can fight. He's tough. He ain't scared. Like, but she also knew a lot of other people on the street. Ain't nobody letting Arielle get fucked with, you know what I mean? So, you know, New York, I don't know how the homeless scene is in other places. Someone made a comment on one of my posts recently about how the homeless people in Florida are very kind of nasty and selfish, and I believe that, to be honest. But in New York, you know, there's a lot of cool people on the street, believe it or not, and you can actually make friends, and they're not gonna fucking steal from you. They're you know, like, there's some decent people on the streets in New York. It's like its own fucking community. It's like if the apocalypse happened, that's how people would be living, how the homeless people live in New York. Anyways, maybe I'll make a video about that one day, because I can give you a breakdown of what society will be like if everything just went to shit and everyone was living like on the street. Anyways, so yeah, there's a lot of decent people. I made a lot of friends on the street in New York. You know what I mean? A lot of good friends, people I really like, people I trust, and people I like. But so the first time I met Ilya, I'm sitting in Strawberry Fields doing my jokes, and this dude walks by, and he looked like Ozzy Osbourne. He, you know, the dude who plays Ilya in the movie does not really look like Ilya. You can see what Ilya looks like if you Google him. Google Ilya Leontiev. It's Ilyaleon Leontiev. Leontiev. Maybe an E at the end. I don't know. You'll find him. But so the picture you're going to see is when they took a picture at the movie premiere where me and Ilya showed up there. Me, Ilya, and Evan showed up at the movie premiere. We were in Strawberry Fields all day. I was working so I could get enough money for some dope. So I get my money up. We go get our dope. We go do it. And then we go to the movie premiere. So we're all high on heroin at the movie premiere, and someone was riding a skateboard outside, and Ilya's like, yo, let me see if I can still ride a skateboard. The kid lets Ilya get on the skateboard. Within 2 minutes of Ilya being on the skateboard, he's pissed drunk and high on heroin. The thing flies out from under him, and he crashes his face into the ground, and he's bleeding out of his fucking head. This is right before the movie premiere. So the picture that you're gonna see of Ilya on Google is you're gonna see like a cut right here, because it happened like 10 minutes before that. Because when we were outside waiting for the movie to premiere to happen, the Safdie brothers came out and found Ilya. They're like, yo, come in, like do a little press or whatever, take some pictures, we'll introduce you, whatever. So Ilya goes in. They're like, we gotta fucking clean you up first though, because he's bleeding out of his fucking eyebrow. So if you Google Ilya, that's the picture you're gonna see, and he's wasted, completely wasted. And another thing at the movie premiere, you got to realize it's all these Upper West Side street people in there with all the other Hollywood people. So during the movie, a fight broke out, and in the theater, in the middle of the movie, it was Jimmy and Suzanne. Jimmy is from my video about my worst Christmas ever. It was that Jimmy got in a fight with Suzanne, who them two just were always fighting back and forth. Anyways, so, you know, Jimmy was just this super flamboyant gay guy who used to date this really rich, like, magazine publisher guy or something. And when they broke up, Jimmy just went out on the street. He'd been out on the street ever since. This was like in the 90s or the 80s or something. I used to see Jimmy around Strawberry Fields. I'm like, this guy's like feral. He'd be walking around with no shoes, no socks, no shirt, but he was as comfortable as if he was in his living room, you know? I could tell stories about Strawberry Fields all day. Anyways, so the way I met Ilya was, I'm sitting in Strawberry Fields doing my jokes. Here comes this dude walking by, and he reminded me of like Ozzy Osbourne. He's got long black hair, like ice blue eyes, and he's wearing all black, and he looks like this like metal type headbanger type dude. And as he's walking by, he's also got a kitten in his hand. And as he's walking by, he's like, yo, what's up, man? Ilya's like a very outgoing dude. He's, you know, like a fearless type dude. He had been living on the street since he was 11 or 12 years old. So Ilya's walking by, he's like, yo, what's up, man? I'm like, what's up? And he's like, how long you been doing that out here? I was doing the dollar joke thing. I was like, I don't know, a couple months. I'm pretty new to this spot. And he's like, yeah, I'm surprised I never seen you before, because I'm out here all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm surprised too I never seen you, you know? Anyways, I was kind of, in a way, kind of trying to brush him off and get rid of him, because I'm trying to make money. And this crazy looking dude with the long black hair and the black trench coat, looking all goth and shit, he's not going to be too good for business, is what I'm thinking. So I'm being polite, but I'm kind of trying to brush him off. But he's a charismatic dude, and so we ended up becoming friends. I was like, I like this guy, you know? Like, we just clicked up, dude. I don't even know how to explain it. You know, you just click up with some people. Me and him just clicked up. And so I was also a little concerned about the kitten. I'm like, what's this guy going to do with this fucking kitten? He's wasted. He's pissed drunk and probably on heroin. I didn't know at the time much about him. To this day, I don't know what happened to that kitten. I'm guessing he gave it to someone else in Central Park. Like, he's not like a cruel person who's going to hurt the animal, but he found a kitten on the street somewhere, and he was carrying it around with him. And so after that, me and him just became friends, you know? So every time I'd see him, we'd sit there bullshitting, and we both smoked weed occasionally, so if one of us had weed, we'd smoke or whatever, and we just became friends. And so then, at this point, I'm starting to learn how to be homeless. I'm staying at the internet cafe in the winter because it's too cold to stay on the street. Now, the way I found out about the internet cafe was through my buddy Stu, who I met in Times Square. Now, the funny thing is in New York City is the people just kind of stick to their own section, you know what I mean? So my friends in Times Square did not know my friends in Strawberry Fields, and my friends in Washington Square Park didn't know my friends in Strawberry Fields or Times Square. It's weird. People just kind of stay in their own section, you know what I mean? And Union Square was another spot where I'd work occasionally, but there's a little bit of a connection between Union Square and Strawberry Fields. A lot of them people knew each other. And then there's Sheep's Meadow and Central Park, where a lot of them people used to hang out in Strawberry Fields, but they kind of separated from the Strawberry Fields crew because the Strawberry Fields crew was a little more violent, a little more crazy, a little more fucked up all the time, and just they didn't want to be around all the craziness in Strawberry Fields, so they kind of formed their own little clique in Sheep's Meadow, which we were all kind of friends with them too, but they would try to avoid the Strawberry Fields people because a lot of them were just a little crazy, and a lot of fights would break out and just shit would happen, and the Sheep's Meadow crew didn't want to be around it anyways. So yeah, the people in the different sections in New York don't really, they don't know each other. So Stu had introduced me to the internet cafe, and me and Stu would stay like in the corner with a couple other people we knew from Times Square. But as it turned out, Ilya was staying in there too, which I never really noticed them before, but I did notice Arielle because she's a hot girl staying in the internet cafe. So one day Arielle comes in, and of course I'm checking her out. She's a hot girl. But Ilya's with her. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I'm like, I know that. I'm like, there's fucking Ilya. So I go up and talk to him. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, yo, what's up? He's like, you fucking stay here too? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I've been staying here on and off for fucking years, dude. He's like, I was like, no shit. That's funny. We never ran into each other. But it's like me and the Times Square crew were in one corner, and then him and Ari and their little crew were in like another section of it. Anyways. So then, I was still hanging out with mostly Stu and the Times Square people in the internet cafe, but every once in a while I'd go sit over by Ilya and we'd smoke or whatever and hang out. And I'll never forget one day, there was different cliques in the internet cafe. Then there was like these black dudes who were like gangsters, straight up, like they were in a gang. They hung out in another section. But so, now, Ilya and Arielle were on and off all the time, but Ilya was the type where he's a good-looking dude, and he could pull chicks, even though he was homeless as fuck since he was like 11 or 12. He still, if him and Arielle were in a fight, he'd just go pull another hot girl out of nowhere. I don't know where the hell he'd find these girls, but so one night, I don't know, Arielle must have been with Mike or whatever, and Ilya, now Mike is in the movie, heaven knows what, he's the one who's also with Arielle, like Ilya and Arielle were like, they were with each other, but Ilya could be a little abusive at times, I guess. You can see it in the movie. And so Arielle would leave him and get with Mike, but then Ilya would just go snatch up some other chick from somewhere else. He didn't even give a fuck, So one day we're chilling in the internet cafe, me and Stu, and Ilya comes in. He's got two hot girls with him. I don't know where they came from. They didn't look homeless. And so Ilya's sitting there showing them like some super heavy metal, death metal that he listens to. Like he's showing it to these chicks. And Ilya's from some village in Russia that's in like rural Russia. They moved to America when he was like 5 years old or something. And he was living in Queens, but his mom had him when she was really young. She had Ilya when she was like, I don't know, under 18. So Ilya, I don't know, she kicked him out when he was like 11 or 12, and he had been on the streets ever since. So he told me when he was first on the street, he was still trying to go to school and stuff, but then he just dropped out and was like, fuck this shit. And he said he didn't know what to do in the winter, so he would like wrap newspaper around himself and then put his clothes on top of it, which probably didn't help much. But anyway, so yeah, Ilya's tough. He'd been out on the street surviving since he was a little kid, 11, 12. When I was 11, 12, I was still into like Ninja Turtles and shit, you know what I mean? Like, so I couldn't imagine an 11 or 12-year-old me on the street would have, I probably wouldn't have made it, but Ilya was making it. And another thing I want to say about homeless people, it's like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, they're just drunks and junkies and this and that. A lot of them are not that way until they end up on the street, you know what I mean? Because being on the street is a very brutal situation. You're freezing your ass off in the winter, you're sweating your balls off in the summer. I mean, a lot of people just don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do, so they end up just trying to get wasted all the time to escape reality. And that's how a lot of junkies are on the street. A lot of drunks are on the street, because it's just such a brutal reality that people don't want to, they just want to escape reality. But I need to make a video about how to avoid that, because that's pretty much, if you get sucked into that, you're pretty much trapping yourself on the street. Because once you're a heavy alcoholic or a heroin addict or whatever, getting off the street doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is getting fucked up. So, you know, Ilya had been out there since he was 11 or 12 years old. But so anyways, now I'm in the internet cafe hanging out with Stu. Me and Stu's always got some fire ass weed. Stu is heavy pothead. He's from Philly. I like Stu. We ended up having a falling out. I think Stu thinks that I don't like him anymore, but I do. I still love Stu. I still love Stu, man, because the last time I seen Stu, we had a little fallout, and we were a little angry with each other, and we weren't talking for a couple years. But then I seen Stu a couple years later, and I was actually going to go make peace with him and say what's up, but he went away. I guess he thought I was coming up to like start a fight with him or something, but I was coming to talk to Stu and say what's up and tell him it's all good, you know. But that was the last time I seen Stu. He just, you know, he left before I could get a chance to go say what's up to him and tell him, you know, I don't give a fuck about all that bullshit no more, you know. Anyways, so me and Stu are hanging out in the internet cafe. Ilya comes in. He's got these two hot girls. A fight breaks out. Ilya's in the middle of it. He's fucking tussling with some dude. And these two hot chicks are jumping in. They're kicking the guy and trying to punch him and shit. And I'm like, man, look at Ilya, bro. Like, this kid, he's a pimp, bro. He's got these two hot-ass girls jumping in. And fucking all the, like, black gangster type dudes were like, God damn, boy, you got a strong team. They're like, look at him. He's got these two hot-ass fucking white girls jumping in on this fight. Like, everyone was just kind of impressed by it, because these two, like, feminine ass girls, like, trying to jump in this rumble with, you know what I mean? So, like, Ilya was like a legend out there, bro. But so now I need to introduce a new character. I'm gonna call him Macy. Anyone who knows us and knows the story knows who I'm talking about. Macy is, there's this weird type of people in New York City where they're kind of hippies, but they're also kind of gangsters. It's weird. Like, they're thugs, they're bullies, they're like, Gary the Mayor was like this. Gary the Mayor is a dude who used to work in Strawberry Fields, who me and him had a few run-ins together. He tried to run me out of Strawberry Fields, but I was like, we ended up becoming friends. But Gary tried to run me out because he felt like I was fucking up his money, because he was doing something else in Strawberry Fields, where he called himself the mayor of Strawberry Fields. Man, this video might end up being long. But so Gary had his thing going. He didn't like that I was sitting up front making money. He wanted to make all the money in there, so he tried to run me out. And he's a big dude, but he ain't. I felt like I could beat his ass, you know. So he's trying to run me out. I'm like, bro, don't. I was like, you ain't gonna run me out of here with words, bro. If you want to do something, we can do something, but words ain't gonna cut it, bro. So don't even waste your time. You know, I'm working here. You're doing what you're doing over there. I'm doing what I'm doing over here. You don't own this motherfucking park, bro. You ain't running me out. Anyways, we ended up kind of becoming friends. He kind of respected that. He's like, whatever, fuck it, you know. But I saw Gary get into a lot of fights in the fields. But anyways, if you want to see Gary, you can Google Gary, the mayor of Strawberry Fields. A lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people did like him, but a lot of people didn't like him. So, but there's this type of people in New York who they're kind of hippies, but they're also kind of thuggish. So Macy was one of these type of people. Now Macy, he was actually, when he was born, his mother was on heroin. So he was actually born addicted to heroin. I didn't even know this was a thing. But so, you know, Macy, he's like one of those Grateful Dead people or whatever, you know. He's really into the Grateful Dead, but he's also kind of a bit of a gangster. Macy sells a lot of drugs and stuff. And so Macy's the type where sometimes he's got a shitload of money because he just moved a bunch of shit. Other times he ain't got shit, but he's always looking to make money. He's a very confident dude. He can pull chicks very easily. He's a good looking dude. He's got long hair, you know, and Macy was good. I had seen him pulling chicks all like out of Strawberry Fields. You know, he's good. He can, if he gets to step into a girl, he's probably gonna get her. He's that type. Very confident dude. Anyways, when me and Ilya first met Macy, me and Ilya are sitting in the fields chilling, and here comes this dude, very confident, very cocky. Just, you know, invites himself right in with us. And like, to be honest, I didn't really like him. I felt like he was too forward, but Ilya kind of liked him. But, you know, we're talking and we're telling him we stay at an internet cafe, and he's trying to talk. He's like, you guys can come stay with me. We just met this guy 5 minutes ago. So you guys can come stay at my girl's apartment in the Bronx. Now, Macy's the type where he would be homeless, except for the fact that he's good with girls, so he can always find some girl to stay with. So he's like, yeah, you guys can come stay with me and my girl in the Bronx and this and that. And Ilya's like, yeah, maybe we'll do that, yeah. And so I'm not really saying much. I wait till he leaves, and I'm like, Ilya, if I was you, I wouldn't go stay with him. I don't trust this dude, you know. I'm like, you do what you want to do, but ain't nothing free coming out of that motherfucker. He's slick. That boy is a wolf, you know. And so, anyways, we end up kind of becoming friends with Macy. I'm always kind of keeping my distance from him because I can just sense that he's not a good person. He's a sneaky person he don't care about nothing but himself, put it that way. So, but he was pretty popular around that area because, you know, he's a charismatic dude, he's a slick dude. But I never trusted him, and to be honest, I never really liked him too much either. But so, now Macy, he's the type, he's going to get everything out of you that he can in a very slick way. So there was another musician in Strawberry Fields, Jacques, he's a black dude who used to play Beatles music. And Jacques actually used to be like this heavy metal. He's one of those rare black dudes that's really into like heavy metal. Jacques had long hair. And, you know, I ended up becoming Facebook friends with Jacques. So I seen pictures of Jacques when he was younger. Now at this point in Strawberry Fields, Jacques like 50 years old and he's a heavy alcoholic and he's on heroin and all this other shit. When I seen pictures of Jacques from like the 80s, he's this fucking good looking dude in great shape, and he's in this rock band and he's all these hot chicks. I'm like, holy shit, look at Jacques, bro. But Jacques was also like a really sweet and kind dude who Macy latched onto Jacques and just sucked everything out of him, because Jacques, even though he was a heavy alcoholic and a heavy heroin addict and he didn't look so great anymore, like you could just tell this guy was wasted when you fucking looked at him. But he was a talented musician, pretty talented. But Jacques' strength was talking to the crowd. He's a very charismatic dude, so he would talk to the crowd and get them laughing and stuff. And for whatever reason, even though he kind of looked like shit, he could kind of get the attention from the pretty girls too, because he was just such a charismatic dude, you know, and a pretty talented musician. His issue was he was wasted all the time. Anyways, so I just fucking ruined that. Macy fucking latched onto there goes the hidden identity. Macy latched onto Jacques one day, and stayed on him ever since. And I could tell he was like dwindling Jacques down. He's getting Jacques to buy him heroin every day because Jacques was a decent musician. He'd make decent money. But he's also living in some dump in the Bronx where he's about to get evicted and all this shit. He's got no heat and all this shit. So Jacques was very afraid to be homeless. He used to try to talk to me about it because he wanted to get some tips. And like, I'd be like, Jacques, let me tell you something, bro. You're stronger and you're tougher than you think. Trust me. The homeless thing, you're going to be fine. If you end up on the street, you're going to be all right, bro. Trust me. I'm like, it ain't as bad as you think it is. You'd be surprised how tough and resilient you are when you get thrown into these positions. But Jacques was very afraid of being on the street. So, and I didn't like what Macy was doing, getting like swindling Jacques into buying him dope every day. Like, Jacques got his own fucking dope habit, you know? Here's a funny little thing about Jacques. One time, Jacques hits me up for a cigarette. I roll one up. I hand it to him. Jacques wasted. He's pissed drunk. He's high on heroin. He takes the cigarette backwards, fucking lights it by the filter. I'm watching him do it. He fucking lights the thing and he hits it and takes this huge drag of the filter and just chokes out. It looked like a vape cloud. And he's like, what is that fucking nitroglycerin? He's like, it almost made him throw up. I'm like, dude, you lit it fucking backwards, bro. Like, I was cracking the fuck up. I mean, he sucked the whole filter down in like the first drag and released this fog of smoke. I was like, oh my, you're gonna fucking die if you ever do that again, dude. Anyways, so I didn't really like the way Macy was latched onto Jacques like that, but Macy's the type where he's gonna find someone to latch onto, and he's very charismatic, he's very slick, he's a fucking wolf in sheep's clothing. So Jacques ended up dying of he drank himself to death, basically. One day in Strawberry Fields, Jacques is throwing up blood. I'm like, what? I'm like, bro, go to the hospital. What are you doing, you know? He ended up dying that night. He didn't go to the hospital, I don't think. He went home. But he drank so much that his esophagus, like, rotted out or something. I don't fucking know. But here's the thing. I believe he was trying to die. He didn't want to be on the street. Anyways, Jacques died. So then, now Ilya, let me get back to fucking Ilya. So, now Mike in the movie, you know, heaven knows what, Mike is the other guy who's with Arielle a lot. And so yeah, Ilya and Mike started not liking each other, but I liked them both, so I didn't like when they'd fight. I'd be with Ilya. I was closer with Ilya, but I'm friends with Mike too. So I hope Mike is all right. He's pretty much the only character in this story who might be still alive. I think Mike is still alive. Everyone else is dead. So there's a picture on my Instagram. Maybe I'll put it in the community post where it's me. So I took a picture of, there's Ilya sitting there who's kind of like this, just looking at the camera. Next to him is Evan, who's on the phone trying to get us some dope right now. And next to Evan is Dark Mark, who we called him Dark Mark because he's a black dude. He's Mark. So there was White Mark, who's a white guy, but then there's Dark Mark, who's a black guy. That's how we tell them apart. If you say Dark Mark, you're talking about Mark the black guy. And Mark is next to Evan with his arm around him, like, we're all plotting. We're trying to get ourselves some dope. And it's on my Instagram, New York Gritty, but maybe I'll put it as a community post so everyone can see it. So Ilya and Mike kind of stopped liking each other. They used to be best friends, but Ilya and Arielle, Ilya could be a little abusive at times, plus he could get any girl, pretty much any girl he wants. Even though he's homeless, this guy can pull some chicks. You'd be amazed. But so he wouldn't even care when they'd break up. It was like they had it going like that. They were together for years, and like, so they would break up and get back together all the time, and Ilya didn't even take it that personal. He'd just go snatch up some other chick from somewhere else. She'd go get back with Mike, and so Ilya and Mike they started kind of hating each other, and they'd be getting into fights all the time. But if Mike came around and I was with Ilya, I'd talk him out of it, because I liked Mike too, and I didn't want to see them fight. And they're pretty evenly matched. You never knew who was gonna, you know, they're an even fight. But so, they would go, you know, Arielle would be between them all the time, and you know, whatever. But so what ended up happening was the homeless outreach people came around. They gave Ilya a room in Harlem. And then, like a month later, they gave me a room in Harlem in the same building. It's a bunch of homeless people in here. But everyone's got their own room. And it's better than the shelter. And the other thing is, it's not the shelter system. This is all funded by, you know, like really rich New York, super rich people who are trying to help the homeless or whatever. So, Ilya ends up getting kicked out of the room from showing up wasted all the time, and I don't know, he got kicked out though. So I let him come stay in my room one night because he didn't want to stay on the street that night, and I've got a free room, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. They're gonna kick me out if they catch Ilya in there, but whatever. It's my boy, like it's one of my best friends, so I'm like, yeah, you can stay in my room with me, bro. Just, you know, try to keep a fucking low profile and don't do anything stupid, you know what I mean? So Ilya's in my room, we're chilling, smoking some fucking weed. And the next morning, now Ilya is such a heavy alcoholic that if he doesn't get his alcohol in the morning, he would have seizures. So when we'd be staying at the church, he'd hit me up for $3 a lot of times in the morning so he could get his fucking alcohol. He always paid me back later that day. But still, it would piss me off. I'm like, Ilya, why don't you fucking make an extra $3 before you come here at night, so you don't gotta, so I don't gotta wake up to your ass fucking bumming $3 off me every fucking day. I used to get mad, you know, but I'd give it to him because he'd have a fucking seizure if I didn't. So, anyways, he stays in my room that night. And I'm like, you know, we wake up the next day, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go take a shower, brush my teeth, then we're gonna head to the fields, I'm gonna work, and whatever you're gonna do, but we're about to go get on the train. He's like, yeah, he's not looking too good, he's not feeling too good. I'm like, oh shit, you know? Anyways, I go and I brush my teeth to get out of the shower. I come, as I'm brushing my teeth, I hear a crash out in the hallway. I go out in the hallway, Ilya's having a fucking seizure on the ground. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, to Ilya's credit, he came out of the room and had the seizure in the hallway. He didn't want to get me in trouble. I'm like, oh fuck, dude. My phone's not on at the time. I'm using Wi-Fi. So I take the elevator down. I tell the people at the desk, I'm like, yo, there's a guy having a seizure on the 7th floor, you know, this and that. Anyways, ambulance comes and all that shit. And you know, they're all like, what's he doing in here? He got kicked out. Why was he here? And all. I'm like, I don't know, you know. I'm like, you know, I don't know what the fuck. He's in the hallway. He had a fucking seizure. Maybe he stayed in the bathroom. I don't know, you know? And so that happened. But yeah, that's the type of dude Ilya was. Even though he could barely function, he made it out of my room to not get me in trouble. Had his seizure in the hallway. So, man, I might have to split this up into 2 parts. It's already 32 minutes. Shit. I gotta watch this video, man. I don't know. I'll put this video up, I guess. So where we're leaving off is Ilya had a seizure, and he's back out on the street. I got a room at this point. Not long after this, I got a room in the Bronx now. I'll get to the part where Ilya died and everything. There's some suspicious circumstances around his death. I'll put it to you that way. Some people have some theories. I believe Ilya didn't have to die that day, but it's a long story that I need to get into in the next video. But what happened was, when Ilya was younger, he was selling like pills and stuff, and so he ended up getting arrested. At another point, Ilya was caught in some fire or something. That's why in the movie the guy's hands looked messed up. If you notice, Ilya's hands were like burnt. They didn't look like they did in the movie, but his hands were scarred up from burning. I forget what happened, to be honest. You'd have to ask Arielle. But so Ilya got arrested with a bunch of stuff on him. So he was on Rikers Island for a couple of years, which is not a, you don't want, it's a tough jail. You don't want to be there. But so he was there for a couple of years, but he could have avoided that if he had snitched on his connect, but he didn't. Ilya went and did his time. So, while I was working my job on Wall Street and I was renting a room in the Bronx, Ilya, he's sitting there panhandling one day, and this dude comes by, and he's like, "Yo, Ilya?" And Ilya's like, "Yo, what's up?" Yeah. And I guess Ilya didn't even recognize him. The guy's like, "Dude, you don't remember me?" Ilya's like, "Nah, I don't know. Maybe." He's like, "Where do I know you from?" The guy's like, "Dude, you used to sell shit for me. You went to jail for me. You didn't fucking snitch on me." He's like, "Yo, I'll never forget that, what you did for me." He's like, "Here's a bottle of fucking Xanaxes, and here's $1,000. He's like, "I'm gonna get you back on your feet." He's like, "Go get yourself a phone. Fucking here's my number. Get back with me." He's like, "I don't want to see you like this. You fucking did years for me, you know?" And so Ilya's like, yeah, cool, good, yes. I don't want to be on the street. We're good. Like, let's do this, you know? And it ended up costing Ilya his life. I'll get into it in the next video. I'm surprised this is going to be two videos, but it is what it is. So this is only going to be a 2-part thing, because it's and the light's getting weird now anyway. You can't even fucking see me. So oh, okay, I could just whatever. Anyways, I will see y'all on the next one. I'm gonna do another part to this one, the Legend of Ilya Part 2, because yeah, there's actually a lot more to this story. The way Ilya he died under some kind of foul circumstances. I'll get to it. It's not how it happened in the movie. Anyways, let me watch this video and then make sure it makes sense. Thanks for all the subs, likes, comments. I appreciate you. Thanks for the support. Venmo, Cashapp, PayPal, Patreon. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll probably be putting like a video once a week on Patreon, and it's going to be about, you know, oh, there we go. It's going to be about, you know, my theories on how Western, you know, conspiracy theory type shit. Anyways, I'll see y'all on the next one.